Less than 1 month away from National Signing Day on December 15th, and Texas A&M and Jimbo Fisher are charging hard. We got Andrew Hattersley on the line from Gig'em 247 Sports. Join Andrew after each and every Texas A&M game for post-game here at the Voice of College Football. Hey, Andrew. How you doing?
Hey, Mark. How you doing? Yeah, you're right. Charging is probably the right word considering how, the past week and a half has gone with Walter Nolan and Chris Marshall and Le'Veon Moss. They've moved up to number 3 in the rankings now.
Number 3 in the SEC, number 3 nationally. That's life in the SEC. So, yeah, let's run through the recent commits. You can pick them off one by one in regards to their profile, what they bring to the table, and what the outlook is.
Yeah, so it started about a week and a half ago with Walter Nolan. And, we're kind of getting to the point now with the early signing period a month away that kids are going to start making decisions probably in the next couple of weeks. But started with Walter Nolan, and he announced his commitment on the Saturday right before the A&M Auburn game. Huge player, huge piece of A&M. He is rated as the top defensive lineman in the 2022 class, and he is the number 2 player in the country overall. So that was obviously a huge boost for A&M. He's an athletic run stop and defensive tackle that can move all over the line. Our recruiting director Steve Wildfong actually went out and saw him a couple weeks ago, and they put him at running back a little bit. They put him out wide and put him at receiver. They said, he's athletic enough they could probably stick him at linebacker or safety, and he'd probably be just fine too. So that gives an idea of his athleticism. And then they add a huge piece in Chris Marshall, another top 100 prospect. And we're actually up with Le'Veon Moss, who decided this week up to 8 top 100 prospects and in on a ton of other. But Chris Marshall was a big piece as well. He's a guy that's still relatively new to football. He grew up playing basketball. He's a really good basketball player. Has talked about playing both sports when he gets to A&M, but his athleticism is tremendous, and he's just getting better and better. He's coming off a big year. His season did come to an end this past weekend. Fort Bend Marshall was upset in the first round of the playoffs, which was kind of a surprise. But now he'll turn his attention to A&M, and A&M beat out some other big time programs. USC was interested, Alabama was interested, Arizona State was interested. So those were a couple of schools. And then this past week, Le'Veon Moss, who very much keeps things close to the vest in terms of his recruitment, doesn't do a ton of interviews, but A&M was really a school that did a great job making him feel comfortable. That was a big thing that his high school coaches really talked about was, A&M kind of sold him as a money opportunity to be comfortable, to go there, to excel both on and off the field. He was a one-time Alabama commit, but still took a tough couple of visits to A&M this past summer. Came for an official visit, came back for their recruiting barbecue, and it wasn't a necessity that A&M take a running back in this class, but they zoned in on a couple key guys like Le'Veon Moss, and he was pretty much their top target on the board. And really locked in on him as the guy they wanted if they were going to take a running back in this class. And it sets them up really well in the future with, LJ Johnson back and Devon Achane and now Le'Veon Moss, and they're in on a couple top running backs in the next class as well. It kind of, with that's going to be a big position to replace next year. There's going to be some big shoes to fill with Isaiah Spiller leaving, likely leaving for the NFL draft, and just filling in that second running back spot, having a guy like Le'Veon Moss along with LJ Johnson kind of sets up that room really well in the future.
Got Andrew Hattersley on the line from Gig'em 247 Sports, talking up Texas A&M football. The Aggies take on Prairie View before LSU for the season finale. You can join Andrew on post-game here at the Voice of College Football for Texas A&M, and of course there at Gig'em 247. So when we look at the success of Texas A&M recruiting, I got to be honest, I don't know what it was prior to Kevin Sumlin. I'd have to go back and look. But Sumlin did well. You know, he vied for some top 5 type classes, but generally was more in the top 15 range.
Yeah.
And then you've got Jimbo Fisher coming in. He can flash a national championship ring, but there's got to be more to it than that. Obviously, they've piled all sorts of resources into recruiting facilities. They want to win very badly and are pumping everything into the product that they possibly can to compete at the highest level. But when you put it all together, what are the secret ingredients to Jimbo Fisher doing this well in the recruiting path?
I think it's a couple things. And first off, they're just relentless. I mean, you know, it kind of goes back to a point that Kirby Smart made a couple weeks ago when he talked about recruiting being 365 days a year, and that's really true. I mean, it's a relentless job. You've got to stay on players. What the one thing with A&M that I think is kind of noteworthy is they're never really out of it. They, you know, if a kid leaves them out of his top list, you know, they continue to stay on him, continue to plug away behind the scenes. They're just relentless on that front, and they do as good a job as anybody at closing out recruitments when they smell an opportunity to close the door. Very rarely let guys get away, and that was true when you look at Walter Nolan. I mean, his recruitment took a turn this summer, and they really weren't in the picture, and their family kind of admitted that they weren't really in the picture until late July. He comes on the recruiting barbecue, loves it, great environment, and then that barbecue kind of set everything up for the future. I mean, for the fall season, they're able to get him back, and then you know, it comes down to obviously what you do on the field and being able to show recruits where they would be able to fit in, you know, and you know, show them that things are working. And if you look at A&M, the win over Alabama really kind of sold them on, on where they could fit into the system, where they could, you know, where they could really, you know, just thrive. And he came back for the South Carolina game, and that was huge too. And just continued to just really, you know, hammer home the point. So I think that was one of Texas A&M basketball's recruits just decommitted. So that was another thing on there. But you know, when you look at this, when you look at what they're able to do, it comes down to relationships as well, and it comes down to being able to sell them and make them feel comfortable. That's another big thing a lot of players talk about, and they're not afraid to go after the best players, and they're going to go after the best players, and they're going to pursue them hard. They're going to recruit them hard. They're going to continue to, you know, find ways to get into recruitments and find out who they need to build relationships with, and really sell them on that mission. So that's really what they've done.
Please like the video, share these videos out on social media, because if you enjoy the information and the content, others will as well. And subscribe right here at the Voice of College Football, and check out Andrew's work at Gig'em 247 Sports. And yeah, you hit on the relationships. I think that's a bit undersold by media and certainly fan bases, because they think, well, if you flash championship rings and you can show that you're going to compete for championships in your conference and you've got fancy facilities, then the players are going to show up. But we're talking about families making these decisions, parents making or influencing these decisions, and they want to know that their son is going to go somewhere where they're going to be well instructed, directed, mentored, and that there is a family type atmosphere, because there's an extension of their family basically. And this is a huge decision, and they're going off into a situation that is the first time that they're going to leave home.
Yeah, it's really true. It comes down to, and you know, it comes down to, you're going to send your kid away from home, and you're going to, you know, you need to be able to trust him in the system that he's in. And especially when you're sending him out of state, you know, it's not easy to send a kid out of state, and he's got to adjust to a whole new lifestyle, new friends, and it's not for everybody. And it's a grind being in, you know, in the college football environment and playing in a demanding, high level program that's trying to chase a national championship. There's a lot of sacrifice that goes on. And, you know, last year is an extreme example, but when you look at those sorts of environments and all that, it's tough. It's a really tough thing. And so relationships are a huge part of it. And this staff does, it's as good a job as any. You talk about, one of their best recruiters, Elijah Robinson. When I talk to so many kids, one of the first things they bring up all the time is relationships, or he's from the area that I am. He can relate to where I'm coming from and what I'm dealing with, and that's what makes him such a effective recruiter. Is he kind of knows where these kids are coming from, what their background is, what helps them tick, what helps them succeed. And I think that's why a lot of guys end up connecting well with him. Is they understand that, they see that, and it's really it's a group effort. There's a whole lot of people behind the scenes as well that help get the job done. And this staff just works as well in sync as anybody, and on just being able to close out recruitments.
If you're watching us on the SEC channel, please, we've got a Texas A&M channel. Please go over there and subscribe for Texas A&M content. Andrew Heddersley does an exceptional job there at Gig'em 247 Sports and helps us out with Texas A&M post game as well. Joins me just about every week to talk Aggies. The LSU job's open. James Franklin was pretty much the first name that came to the forefront, and he was asked about it. Then it was Lincoln Riley. It was also Mel Tucker at Michigan State. Now it's Jimbo Fisher. The other three have been kind of non-committal. Jimbo's been the one guy to kind of send out the emphatic statement to say, I'm here. I don't want to play against these guys I'm recruiting and signing. I'm not going to LSU.
Yeah, he really, I think he's kind of tired of talking about it too. You could tell that this week that, the first answer he gave, one of the things he didn't come out and really say that he was not going anywhere. And I thought this was a lot more forceful. And you see the results now. It shuts the door. And I thought his point was true. A&M's going to recruit probably at worst a top 3 class. And, why would you want to go play against that? The guys like Walter Nolan that he just got to come to A&M. Why would you want to go play against them? And so that's really the one thing is, he was a lot more forceful this time, and that should start to silence some of the questions, and it helps on the recruiting trail. These kids see the reports on social media. They see his name continue to be at the top of hot boards and things like that. And so, I'm sure he's been asked about it quite a bit at this point, and we then just wanted to put it to bed.
Andrew, the Ole Miss game had to be a disappointment just in regards to competing against a similar team in the SEC West and coming up short on the road, but also because of the Western Division layout that it's still in play that if Alabama loses 2 games, that they can be caught, and especially by Texas A&M since they beat them head-to-head. But it's just not feasible that Alabama's going to lose 2 games. There was thought that, okay, maybe they trip up against Arkansas or most likely Auburn, who has had success against Bama in the past 7-8 years. But so with the loss to Ole Miss, it makes it extremely difficult. And that was a game in which they were super flat to start out, down 15-0. They made a big rally and outplayed Ole Miss, but could not close it out.
Yeah, they I actually thought they were fortunate to be in the game at halftime when just the way, if you look at that stat line, and I still have it up from a couple nights ago. And
I remember seeing like 380 to 80 in yardage at one point. It was way out of hand.
408 to 91. It was 27 first downs or 23 first downs to just 5. They ran 58 plays in the first half to only be down 15-0. To be honest, A&M was fortunate to still be in the game, and it's a credit to the defense and not giving up and what they did just in terms of making the key stops and forcing key turnovers. It was a big time performance from them. But A&M had it kind of settled down in the second half, but it kind of reminded me of the way they played against Arkansas, where they just came out kind of slow and fell behind the 8 ball, and then you get out of your game plan and you kind of force the game to be in the hands of Zach Calzada, which is not the way A&M had won recently. They kind of got ahead, got off to fast starts, and be able to control the game and put the ball in the hands of Devon Achane and Isaiah Spiller. And they were fortunate not to turn it over early on. That really kind of helped give a chance in the second half, but they just left themselves too much ground to come back.
And so at this point in the season, yes, mathematically possible, but not likely in any way, shape, or form to go to Atlanta. Jimbo Fisher still talking about a 10-win season being meaningful and finishing off with a bowl victory.
Yeah, they still have a chance to get to 10 wins if they, can close out strong here with wins against Prairie View and LSU, and then obviously the bowl game. And I think that LSU game, speaking of recruiting, is pretty meaningful because A&M has a chance to beat LSU, once again, and then those two are going head to head for quite a few targets. And so, that's a big opportunity that there's still a lot to play for going on the road. It's going to be a challenging environment, and they better be up to play because LSU obviously gave Alabama a close game a couple weeks ago. They played Arkansas tough. They have played better per se for the past couple of weeks, and so they're certainly not going to let up playing A&M. And there's still quite a bit to play for in terms of finishing off the season the right way. Maybe sneak back into the top 10 in the rankings by the end of the season and kind of set the platform for the future.
Yeah, like you say, the record is not pretty for LSU, but if you look at the performance on the field, they are capable, as you just mentioned, with those performances against teams that A&M has either barely beaten or lost to in the case of Arkansas, and also LSU beating Mississippi State. All right, Andrew, we appreciate you stopping by. We'll catch up hopefully with you next week before the LSU game.
Appreciate it, Mark. Thank you.